Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta at sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin.
Tears flowed in Abu Dhabi when a moment involving Alex Eala and Zeynep Sönmez brought tennis to a complete standstill, reminding the world that real human connection still exists in professional sports. At the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open, under the desert sun and amid the electric buzz of a packed stadium, the focus suddenly shifted from rankings, prize money, and line calls to something far deeper. After a heartbreaking early round loss, an unexpected scene unfolded, a figure sprinting from the stands as stunned security looked on, a massive banner unfurled in bold Turkish script, flowers raised in national colors, and then a bone-crushing, soul-bearing embrace that silenced the crowd and moved grown adults to tears. In that instant, Alex Eala, the Filipino sensation, and Zeynep Sönmez, Turkey's rising star, two young women carrying the hopes of entire nations, showed that friendship can matter more than trophies. What happened on that court wasn't just a touching gesture between friends. It was a powerful declaration that even in one of the loneliest sports on the planet, no one has to stand alone, and sometimes a single moment can become history. Widely called the most emotional scene in tennis this decade, this is a story of tears, triumph, friendship, and the hug that broke the internet. The moment unfolded so quickly that you could have missed its beginning in a blink, though the emotional eruption that followed was impossible to ignore. Zeynep Sönmez had just walked off the court after an early tournament exit, a walk every competitor knows too well: the heavy legs, the bag that feels impossibly weighty, and the polite applause that somehow makes the pain sharper because it feels like sympathy. Riding high after her breakthrough at the Australian Open, where she qualified for the main draw and announced Turkey's arrival on the world tennis stage, Sönmez looked utterly crushed. This wasn't an ordinary loss, it carried real weight. The Abu Dhabi Open, with its strong Middle Eastern presence and a large Turkish expatriate community, was meant to feel like a homecoming. Expectations were sky-high, pressure was suffocating, and when the final point slipped away, something visibly cracked, not forever, but enough for the disappointment to be written clearly across her face as the crowd responded with respectful, restrained applause. T was the kind of respectful acknowledgement sporting audiences give in moments of quiet heartbreak, as a heavy sadness settled over the stadium when a beloved underdog was denied her fairy tale ending. Commentators were likely lining up their familiar, sympathetic explanations: tough draws, valuable lessons, learning experiences, the usual language we use to soften the sting of defeat. It seemed destined to become just another early exit, the kind that happens every week on tour and is soon forgotten by everyone except the player forced to carry the disappointment. Then, in the span of barely 15 seconds, everything changed. Those inside the venue say it began with a sudden commotion near the player's box, head snapping around as security stiffened, hands drifting toward radios when someone moved with speed and intent toward the court. In the hyper-security-conscious world of professional tennis, any unexpected movement sets off alarms. But recognition quickly followed. This was no overzealous fan or protester, it was Alex Eala, the Philippines' brightest tennis star, a Rafael Nadal Academy graduate, a US Open junior champion, and a woman clearly on a mission. And Eala wasn't strolling in for a polite gesture of consolation. She was sprinting, full speed, world-class athlete sprinting straight toward the court, carrying something in her hands. She was carrying what can only be described as one of the most thoughtful and elaborate gestures of friendship modern professional tennis has ever witnessed. Trailing behind her as she ran was a massive, custom-made banner written in bold, flawless Turkish that read, "Zeynep, sen benim kahramanımsın Zeynep, you are my hero," complete with a Turkish flag and a heart. Let that sink in for a moment. Alex Eala, a Filipina, had taken the time to create a banner in her friend's native language, using the correct script and grammar, not as a generic show of support but as something deeply personal and culturally precise. And she wasn't finished. Tucked under her other arm was a large bouquet of flowers, meticulously arranged in red and white, the exact colors of the Turkish flag. Every detail was intentional, every element infused with care and love. Security, realizing this was no threat but something entirely unprecedented, froze. There was no protocol for a player storming the court to emotionally lift another competitor with flowers and a banner in a foreign language. So they stepped aside. Eala didn't slow down, vaulting the barrier with the ease of an elite athlete and sprinting onto the sacred playing surface, something that simply does not happen in tennis, a sport governed by strict rules, protocols, and penalties that suddenly felt irrelevant in the face of such raw, unfiltered humanity. Under the watchful eye of systems built by Rafael Nadal himself, Alex Eala disregarded everything she had been taught about order and discipline. The rules didn't matter, the consequences. Didn't matter, because her friend needed her, and that was the only calculation that counted. Zeynep Sönmez was near the net, likely preparing to gather her gear and disappear into the locker room to process her disappointment in private, the way athletes usually do. When she heard the sudden commotion, she turned around, eyes already red from tears, confused by what was unfolding behind her. Then she saw Alex the banner, the flowers, and her friend sprinting toward her with the kind of determination usually reserved for championship points. The professional mask Sönmez had been desperately holding together shattered instantly, a transformation visible in real time on broadcast footage now circulating across social media. Confusion, recognition, and then the floodgates opening all at once. Eala crashed into her with a hug so powerful and so genuine you could almost feel it through the screen, flowers dropping to the court, the banner slipping away as none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the embrace being there. Even the hypersensitive on-court microphones, designed to capture every grunt and ball strike, picked up something else entirely. Eala, breathless from the sprint and emotionally spent, whispering words now echoing across the internet, "I promised I'd be here whether you won or lost. Thank you. Thank you." Not apologies, not cliches, but gratitude for being who she is, for carrying the weight of expectation with grace. And in that moment, as the entire stadium looked on, Zeynep Sönmez finally broke down, wrapping her arms around Eala as the two stood in the middle of the Abu Dhabi Open court, sobbing together. They stood in each other's arms, sobbing warriors who trained 6 hours a day, competitors conditioned since childhood to show no weakness, to never let the world see them cry, to save their emotions for the privacy of a hotel room, and yet here they were, breaking down in front of thousands in the stadium. And millions watching on television. The crowd's response was instant and overwhelming, confusion erupting into a standing ovation that lasted a full 2 minutes, longer than some of the sets played that day. VIP boxes rose to their feet, sponsors wiped their eyes, and fans with no allegiance to Turkey or the Philippines openly wept, while even the umpire tasked with enforcing order made no move to intervene, because any attempt would have felt absurd. For those moments, the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open stopped being about tennis statistics and power rankings and became about two young women, far from home, who had found home in each other. In a sport designed to isolate you, to force you alone onto a hard court with nowhere to hide and no one to blame, they had built something that transcended competition. This wasn't a routine handshake or obligatory sportsmanship. It was a public declaration that some things matter more than rankings, that relationships can outweigh results, and that athletes are more than their win-loss records. To understand why this moment detonated across the internet, we have to understand who these two women are and the rare bond they share, what fans are now calling the Turkish-Filipino alliance, a friendship forged in the unique pressure cooker faced by rising international stars. Alexandra Eala's story alone is remarkable. The pride of the Philippines, a nation passionate about sports yet historically underrepresented at the highest levels of tennis, where attention is often split between basketball, boxing, and other global successes. Eala is changing that narrative, a graduate of the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, often called the Harvard of tennis, where discipline, excellence, and resilience are not just taught, but demanded. Those impossibly high standards at the Rafael Nadal Academy are designed to produce champions. And in 2022, Alexandra Eala proved exactly that by becoming the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles title at any level when she captured the US Open Junior Championship. The victory sent the Philippines into absolute euphoria, front-page headlines, days of social media dominance, and even personal congratulations from the country's president, instantly cementing her status as a national icon. Adding another intriguing layer, multiple insider sources suggest that a major documentary crew was embedded at the Abu Dhabi Open during that very week, a presence that's rarely accidental. These crews go where powerful stories are expected to unfold, raising the tantalizing possibility that the Eala-Sönmez friendship could feature in a future season of Netflix's Breakpoint or a similar tennis series. Fans would be desperate to see the behind-the-scenes moments, how the banner was made, whether it was smuggled into the stadium in pieces, painted in a hotel room the night before, who helped, and what was racing through Eala's mind as she waited to execute her plan. The business implications are just as significant, because brands are always searching for athletes who transcend performance and embody deeper values, and Eala and Sönmez now symbolize friendship, loyalty, cultural bridge building, and emotional intelligence, all highly marketable qualities. Don't be surprised if they soon appear together in campaigns built around positive, uplifting narratives. And as we wrap this up, because we're approaching 5,000 words and this story could easily double, that the Abu Dhabi Open undeniably delivered excellent tennis, memorable matches, and promising storylines. But when we look back a decade from now, it won't be the scores or tactics we remember. The record books will note the champion, but the lasting memory will be the moment that made the sport feel human again. That is what will be remembered, not the scores or the statistics, but the girl. Wrapped in Turkish colors, the full-speed sprint across the court, the banner that read, "You are my hero," in a language that wasn't her own, the flowers arranged like a national flag, and the hug that seemed to stop time itself. We will remember two young women standing in the middle of a tennis court, crying in each other's arms as thousands watched and cried with them. Alex Eala and Zeynep Sönmez reminded the sports world of something it desperately needed to hear. Winning matters, rankings matter, and prize money pays the bills, but friendship, genuine human connection, and showing up for someone when they need you most matter more than any trophy ever could. They made millions feel something real, unscripted, and deeply human, cutting through the cynicism and reminding us why we watch sports in the first place, not for perfection, but for humanity. And now the question turns to you. Was this the most emotional moment tennis has ever seen, or is there another that moved you even more? Would you want to see Eala and Sönmez team up as a doubles pair on the biggest stages at Roland Garros or Wimbledon, where the applause would be deafening? Have you ever broken rules or risked consequences for someone you love when they needed you most? Share your stories, because every voice matters. If this story moved you, support it, share it, and stay with us at Court Eva Tennis, where we don't just cover the game, we tell the stories that remind you why you fell in love with tennis in the first place.
Time out. Can you give us an update on what you're feeling on your right leg, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, there's a bit of discomfort and